Welcome to Freedom Friday, where we shine the light of God's Word in the dark chapters of human history to proclaim justice, freedom, and truth on behalf of the oppressed and the exploited. Today, we're reflecting on a sobering yet revealing message from the book of Revelation about one of the most despicable and barbaric practices in human history. That passage, Revelation 18:11 through 13, is a passage that describes the fall of Babylon, not as a physical entity, but as a system that prioritizes wealth over righteousness and commerce over compassion. Let's read what the word says. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, that is Babylon, because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones, fine linen, and the bodies and souls of men. Babylon in Revelation isn't necessarily a physical place. It represents a spiritual and economic system that thrives on human exploitation. It's an empire built on greed, oppression, and idolatry. The merchants of Babylon are not just traders of goods, they're traders of people, traders of souls. They turn human beings into property, souls into profit. When we think about that description, there's one period in human history, above all else, that captures this Babylonian spirit more than any other: the transatlantic slave trade. See, the transatlantic slave trade stands as one of the darkest chapters in human history, a time when men and women were captured, chained, and sold as cargo. Over 12 million Africans were forcibly transported to the so-called New World. Millions more perished during capture and transport, lost in the belly of slave ships, their names erased, their voices silenced. Scholars have found that, on average, 2 out of every 10 people died on those slave ships. And because the enslaved were shackled in twos, often in the morning light, one would find himself shackled to a dead comrade who had passed away quietly in the night. Between 1452 and 1455, Pope Nicholas V issued papal decrees authorizing the Portuguese crown to invade, capture, and enslave Africans. Those were his words. Those words echo the language of Babylon: conquer, subdue, and profit. Portugal became the first major power to transport Africans across the Atlantic, and soon other European nations joined in: Spain, England, France, and the Netherlands. The result was a vast global network built on the suffering of human beings. The slave trade didn't just fill the coffers of merchants, though. It fueled entire economies. Banks, insurance companies, and shipping firms in Europe and America all profited from human misery. The wealth generated by enslaved labor built cities, funded the Industrial Revolution, and shaped modern capitalism. Behind every grand estate and industrial advance was the unpaid labor of black bodies and the blood of stolen souls. The world grew rich, but spiritually bankrupt, and it is still paying the cost today. Revelation 18 captures this reality perfectly. A world intoxicated by wealth, but blind to the cost of its greed. A system that traded not only in cargoes of gold and silver, but in the bodies and souls of men. Babylon is both economic and spiritual. It is the same spirit that promotes segregated worship, distorts truth, and blinds nations to injustice. It's the spirit that says profit matters more than people, especially if they're black people. It's also a worldview, a mindset, a world order that exalts greed, racism, and domination over the image of God in others. Many religious institutions, tragically, participated in this system. Some of them blessed slave ships, others owned plantations, and still others remained silent while millions suffered. That silence was itself a sermon, one preached in allegiance to Babylon, not to Christ. They also misused the Bible to justify something that was clearly evil to its core. But in doing so, they avoided Revelation 18:13, which promises divine judgment against those engaged in the traffic of their fellow human beings. They also avoided 1 Timothy 1:10, that lists slave trading as an evil condemned by God's word. But the story doesn't end with Babylon's rise. Revelation is about Babylon's fall. Revelation declares judgment upon those who exploit, enslave, and oppress. The merchants will mourn, not for the lives they have destroyed, but for the wealth they lost. This is not just ancient prophecy. It's divine truth that still speaks today. Whenever systems devalue human life, whenever greed overshadows justice, and whenever the powerful profit from the pain of others, Babylon lives again. The transatlantic slave trade may have been Babylon's most visible form, but the same spirit lingers today in racism, materialism, and systems that treat people as disposable. We must choose another way, the way of Christ, who came to set the captives free. So today, as we remember the millions who suffered and died under the Babylonian system of greed and slavery, let us also remember the greater truth. Babylon has fallen. The system has in itself the seeds of its own destruction. It does not have to be destroyed by fire and brimstone like Sodom. It may be a slow but inevitable decline. But either way, Babylon has fallen. Thank you for joining me on Freedom Friday today. If this presentation spoke to you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Until next week, stay free, stay faithful, and stay hopeful. This is Freedom Friday, where we tell the whole story.